Welcome to another edition of Let's Study, where we take a look at games in a more academic light and talk about them in a little more depth than the medium is typically accustomed to. So feel free to join us for more of this sort of, artistic breakdown on Twitch, and you can find the link to that in the description. So in this edition, we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 4, aka Biohazard 4. I guess first a quick remark about the titles of the games in this series. I'm not sure why they were swapped. Somebody who knows more about their history can obviously let us know on that. But I understand that the first game took place in a mansion primarily, but even still, the play on words isn't very good. And to me, Biohazard makes a lot more sense, but who knows? And speaking of quick words, let's talk about this series as a whole. Taken as an entirety, I don't think it's very good. I can't get into the specifics without drawing time away from the specific game we're looking at here, but comparisons can be fairly inevitable when an IP is stretched across a number of installments. And opinions vary as they do, and I think there's a great amount of enjoyment to be had in the early games of the series, as they were very novel. They were on new hardware in the mid to late 90s. But as technology has progressed, gaming narratives have also progressed, and this series has not innovated in the least in a very long time. So, in fact, I'd say that Resident Evil 4 here was the last time the series did anything wonderful. But boy, I guess it really did, though. So let's get to this game already. The plot is hopelessly stupid. It makes no fundamental sense, and everything about it is insultingly stupid. Video games very often have to curb their storytelling to fit into a gameplay structure. So you're very often going to get something a bit backward, a bit awkward. But even grading on that curve, Resident Evil 4's plot, writing, everything about it from a narrative perspective is absolute rubbish. The breakdown is that Leon Kennedy, who was a previous protagonist in the series during RE2, I believe he's tasked with rescuing the U.S. president's daughter. I don't know that it's explicitly stated, but the benefit of the doubt reason I've always thought is he's doing this entirely by himself in order to prevent press leaks or media or some such. But even so, Leon is in constant communication with someone back home, a young woman, in sort of a Metal Gear Solid type of situation. And honestly, again, it's just, it's ridiculous. The plot doesn't work. It's campy, just to the 1000th power. And Capcom is among the world's worst entities for writing anything that resembles competent video game storytelling. The game, the franchise, they're complete logic sinkholes. They don't make sense even on the most basic level. So why is this game so great if the plot is crap? Well, usually a marriage of narrative context and gameplay is what makes a game great or close to it. This game is in a different category, maybe all on its own, in that its story is world-class bad, but the gameplay itself is so interesting, so engaging, and so addictively fun that it renders the stupidity of the greater context more or less irrelevant. I don't know that another game has done this to the extent Resident Evil 4 has. Capcom could very easily have made another Resident Evil game, complete with, the old tank controls and the awkward fixed camera rooms and all that. But they didn't. This game's over-the-shoulder, third-party person view and the innovative, at the time, the new aiming system. It's like swinging at a first pitch and hitting it out of the park. It not only worked on the first go, but it's been emulated over and over and over again a decade later. And honestly, even still, there's not many games that are doing it better. The situations Leon finds himself in and the action sequence, they're extremely intense. He feels vulnerable very often. It's very tense gameplay. The control scheme stops being awkward within a few minutes of the first time most players use it. And it's just the rarest of the rare. It's a truly brilliant gameplay innovation. One of the best I've ever seen or played. And beyond the joy of just using the controls scheme in the game are the visceral rewards this game has when you play it. Whoever was responsible in this game for sound mixing and audio design, they did a positively brilliant job. One of the most simple and exciting rewards for the player in this game is popping an enemy in the head at just the right place so that their head explodes into this squishy, melty, gooey mess. That gives an immediate sense of self-gratification as well as relieving the pressure a player feels for being under attack to begin with. The weapons in this game all feel very different, despite there being quite a few of them. The inventory system in this game feels very rewarding instead of cumbersome. The old games, you had to sort of store them in chests and come back to get your items and do a lot of backtracking, and that combined with the limited amounts of game saves you could do, it was really, really, really difficult to keep invested in those games for a long period of time because of those really, really annoying hurdles that you had in inventory management. But in this game, being able to manipulate your items and organize them really simply and to make decisions on what you need and what you don't need, it's extremely gratifying in the same way that like cleaning out your toolbox or cleaning out your purse or handbag would be in real life. It has an inherent small, simple pleasure joy to it. And your weapons and grenades and flash grenades in this game all create really easily and seamless ways to customize how you want Leon to engage the obstacles that are ahead of him in this game. This game pretty much birthed QuickTime events, as far as I know. They were extremely novel, believe it or not, when this game came out all those years ago. And they serve the gameplay in this game a lot better than they have in maybe any other game since. They aren't just meant to convince you you aren't watching a cutscene. There's one sequence in particular where you're playing as Ashley, and you have to open a set of gates by turning the crank while an enemy slowly creeps toward you. This is proper tension. This is an organic and fitting way to use a QuickTime event. And games have really, really lost sight on how to use them and when to use them. So speaking of Ashley, let's talk about how great she is as a gameplay mechanic. She is always vulnerable. She's someone you're escorting, and escort missions have a bad rap, and for good reason. Ever since GoldenEye, gamers have been rightfully dubious of how escort mechanics are implemented in games. That in Ashley's case, she's pretty much exactly what you want. She follows instructions very well. She'll hide when you tell her to. She'll stay put when you tell her to. And it adds a great anxious puzzle element to a lot of the game's environments. She's also softer than Leon, but she's not just made out of glass. The game rightfully allows Ashley to take a few hits without her just imploding every time she's sneezed on. And the slow slog with which a foe will try to take her away and give you a game over, it's really, really slow. There's tension there, but it's not just an automatic loss. And that creates time for the player, for Leon to process what's going on in some of these really frantic battles and to think and to act, as opposed to merely just trying to keep Ashley from ever being touched at all or feeling like frustrated when they feel like her idiocy is what's keeping them from progressing the game further. And the game also happily gives you breaks from Ashley, which I think is really important. I don't know, who knows what the exacts are, but as a ballpark guess, I'd say she's in around, I don't know, maybe 30-40% of the game. So a little less than half, I guess, and that's obviously not a profoundly large number. And she's also introduced at very correct times within the game's progression, so as to make her feel her presence is a slight difficulty bump, but it's never just this huge, sudden encumbrance, except for maybe towards the end, but at the end of the game, I mean, anything goes. So, the level design in this game is extraordinary. From the very first area where the now famous Ganados ambush takes place, There's the beautiful and endless castle area, the second act of the game. Every area of the game, for a long time anyway, is designed in a way that makes you excited to see what the next area has. It's a constant stimulation of player expectation for what could be coming in the next room. The only place this is really violated is at the end of the game, where the setting devolves into a very, very boring, this sort of military action orgy, which, though RE4 is at its philosophical core, it's a silly, mindless, fun action game. It's very much a letdown to go from Act 1 in a creepy, cultish village, and the second act of this larger-than-life goat skull castle with elaborate art galleries and these impossible lava dragon rooms, to the scene of, like, I don't know, something out of a $2 DVD bin, throwaway action film. You know, this Steven Seagal type garbage. It's just really uninteresting, and it kind of sucks that it's there, honestly. But in fact, the plot of this game is so unfixably, impossibly dumb that if there were one thing I could change about the game, it would be to replace the final environments with something that's exciting and as refreshing, if not more, than the previous 80% of the game, because it does such a good job for such a long time. But that final area is pretty uninspired. The final act of the game also makes a horrible, horrible misstep in its reintroduction of the primary Resident Evil Biohazard canon that I don't know that anybody cares about at this point. The game identified that going back to typical zombie plots was not going to work, and it was going to be really boring, and they added sort of a twist to it in an effort to make it something else. And that's the greatest success of the game, beyond its environments, beyond its gameplay, is someone's correct decision to move away from the qualities that were really starting to bog down the series after its first few entries. I have no idea why plots and characters from previous installments were brought in near the end of this game. The Ada Wong bit kind of works well because she's a character of intrigue, and the Separate Ways episode that some of the bonus editions of the game have, they do a great job at showing her behind the scenes, working on Leon's journey from, despite him not knowing about that. And that's kind of interesting, kind of neat. She and Leon have some really interesting tension and chemistry between one another that you don't really need a lot of backstory to immediately pick up on. She doesn't overstay her welcome. She kind of comes and then goes. It's just this sort of intriguing background character. Jack Krauser, on the other hand, is the worst character in this game by a pretty wide margin. His scenes with Leon are incredibly cheesy. They're offensively stupid. All of his lines are really moronically written. They're painful to hear, even in a game that, whether intentionally or not, embraces this dumb, scary action campiness. But his presence in this game is completely superfluous. It puts the old, tired Umbrella Corp stuff back at the forefront in a game that was served so well by being liberated from all that crap. So sadly, the series keeps going back to that, and it doesn't seem like the magic they found with this installment is ever going to return because of that. But hey, at least we got this one. The last thing I want to emphasize is the New Game Plus options in this game, and also, I guess, the very celebrated blue shadowy merchant character. Capcom has thankfully not delved deeply, as far as I know, into this character at all. I certainly don't think they do within this game, which is great because the entirety of his charisma is tied to his mystery. As soon as he has parents, or as soon as he has a motive, he's over. That's it. So I'm very grateful that all these years later we can still look back on him fondly because of his sort of this weird background, nebulous existence. But anyway, about the New Game Plus. New Game Plus in this game, the modes are, they essentially allow you to afford the most powerful tools and weapons from the enigmatic merchant guy, which is a great way to keep the game continuously fresh after you finish the difficult vanilla version of it. This game is over a decade old at this point, but it's still receiving profitable re-releases. But unlike the other re-releases that seem to continuously come out of just laziness and library padding for new consoles, this game, I believe, continues to get its platform updates because it really is that fundamentally fun after all these years. It really shows that the best way to make a classic with an existing IP is to take other things that are intriguing and enjoyable about previous entries in the IP, make them better, and then get rid of positively everything else. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a great example of that sort of jumping off point philosophy for growing a franchise. But based on everything that happened with this series after this very, very genius installment, I'm going to assume that it was a happy accident, or I guess a lot of intelligent people that worked on this game went somewhere else afterward. But hey, no matter how many average to bad Biohazard titles we get with the same 6 or 7 inconceivably unlucky characters who are just destined to undergo virus outbreaks and undead raptures forever. We'll always have this rural Spain village. We'll always have the Dr. Salvador chainsaw kill. We'll always have Iron Maidens and Del Lago, the lake monster, and we'll have these great puzzles that slow things down a little, but not for too long. We'll always have El Gigante. We'll always have, I guess, we'll always have Leon and Ashley. So this game is, it's great, but it's a really bizarre and sort of paradoxical form of great. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully we'll continue to have these